Hi guys, welcome back to Two Odd Sky Podcast. On today's episode, we have Senator Alex Antic. Today we talk about free speech, government oversight, and foreign lobbying. I hope you guys enjoy. But yeah, mate,
you just hit go.
That's it, yeah. And we're away. Yeah. What I need you to do is just get a little bit closer to the mic there for me. Perfect. But mate, I need to start off. I seen something the other day, and I've been pretty disappointed with the Liberal Party and a lot of the stuff that's been happening. You know, since probably since the laws come through. But mate, to see you sit there in Adelaide and order a low carb beer, mate, I was pretty pissed off.
Yeah. Well, I've heard it a lot, actually. I've heard it a lot in the last week, a few days. And look, it's not my normal way to throw someone else under the bus, but Bernardi asked for low carb beer. He's fit, right? He doesn't like his carbs. I said, look, you know, I don't reckon this is the right environment. It's Rundle Street, you know, we're surrounded by hipsters. If I go in there and ask for low carb beers, I'm done. But I did it because he's a mate, and I came back with a couple, and I've never heard the end of it. But look, I mean, I did say the other day I've spoken about this. I've apologised as much as I can. That's why pencils have erasers, and I won't do it again. I won't do it again. It's nothing but full strength for me from now on. I've learnt my lesson.
Well, I'm mate, you're probably looking at me. I'm definitely a low carb beer.
Well, that's what I assumed. I don't think it's a bit rich coming from you, but anyway, whatever. I mean, I don't know. I'm apologising more to the people of Australia. I think it was an error, and you got to learn your lessons. Simple as that. And wrong time, wrong place.
And you're mates with Corey, aren't you?
Yeah. I am. But I've known him for a long period of time. Corey's one. I mean, depends who you say this to. It might get more, scorn than nice. But Corey's one of the reasons why I'm in politics. Because
is he really?
Yeah, he really is. I really liked what he was doing a long time ago. Corey sits, and probably still does, sits well outside the Overton window, which I'm sure people know. But the concept of the Overton window is that's the sort of the brackets around what's acceptable in politics. And he was first off the bat with a whole heap of issues that included the rise of the CCP and, climate change, all these sorts of things. And I thought, wow, this guy's out there throwing punches, and politics doesn't have to be one speed. So that's kind of, and it wasn't like, it wasn't that's it, I'm doing it because of him. I had other friends involved, but certainly I thought that's good. I mean, it means there is room for dissenting views in politics, even internally. And so, I've known him for years, and he's been a good source of advice. On this occasion, though, he's chucked me right under the bus. So I'm just, I got to distance myself.
Mate, there was a shitstorm on X, and everyone was pushing it out. And
I know, it's a disgrace.
The best one is the photo of you with your eyes half like this, and you're looking out the corner of your eye.
Well, I was drinking low carb beers. I'm likely to be upset. I should have got him he's actually more of a glass of wine sort of guy. I reckon he was a crisp white. I should have done that. That would have had more credibility, I reckon.
I'm a red wine type of guy.
That's all right. That's fine.
As you've probably seen from my collection coming in.
I did. I was very impressed.
And hey, look, before we start, I told a few people that you're coming on this podcast, and the one question that they had and they wanted to know was, why do you disable your comments?
Well, look, I should have addressed that earlier. And I know it comes up a lot. The reason actually is, I'm a lawyer from a previous era. I spent sort of 20 years practicing in the law for my sins. It's made, one of the things it does to you, it makes you hyper, kind of vigilant about risk. And
I get scared with my comments. I get thousands a day.
I know, and they're impossible to curate. I a few years back, we were getting the same. We were getting thousands, all supportive largely. Like, I mean, this was never I'm not here for the comments type scenario. But the problem was people were getting so passionate that they were saying things about other people, which to me, there has been law on this. There's been a few federal court decisions about whether or not you're liable for your own comments that people put on there. I don't think it was ever properly decided, but it does raise the spectre of you being liable for things other people say. I just got to the point where I thought, look, we can't monitor them. We had moderation software. I had, people in the office were looking at the comments to try and pluck them out. None of it worked properly. And so we'd get these well-meaning comments that would just keep me up at night. So I just thought, look, I'm just going to take the slings and arrows. So it's not about criticism. And I know it dampens the reach and whatever, but I don't want to get sued. Yeah, that's it.
With my stuff, I think I did a post last night. There's 2,500 comments on it when I just checked then. Hasn't even been 24 hours yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even have time to check the emails that I get every day, let alone the comments.
That's right.
So you're saying that I can be held liable?
Well, I don't think it's ever been properly decided. I mean, I won't bore your listeners and your viewers with a bit of backlog on the case of Voller. You can look it up, though. It was never quite decided, but it was held in that case that the publisher, I think, of a Facebook site was, I think it was Fairfax or someone like that, and they... the court ultimately decided, and there will be lawyers that are listening that will say that's wrong, I've been out of it for too long, but that they were the publisher of other people's comments. So it's possible. It's just too close to home. I just think it just doesn't happen because people don't do it. Like people just don't physically go off and, issue proceedings against someone for a comment that's on their page, but it's a risk, and which is unfortunate. My view, by the way, is that Parliament should actually run over the top of that and just say, well, this is the social media company's problem. Because the idea is if you can, the concept is if you can edit the comment, then you're the publisher. Like if you can take it down, then that makes you responsible for it. So you should just be taking it down. If someone rolls out with something defamatory, and then theoretically you should be able to take it down. But no one's got the time for that, and the software doesn't do it. You have to put in keywords, and sometimes things are not just word based. They're like a sentence that doesn't have a swear word or something else in it. It's just the implication. So it's very complicated, and I just didn't want to take the risk, so I thought, cool, pull them out. That's what it is for anyone. I should have said that a long time ago, but
well, now that we've cleared it up, there's going to be a whole bunch of people now that probably won't be resharing your stuff and saying why does his comments?
Yeah, I know. I see them all the time. Sorry, everyone. Everyone was very supportive. Actually, it's generally very good, but I just I'd like to stay in my house.
Yeah, well. And probably as well, if you're getting caught up in comments, trust me, I've had to stop looking. I stopped looking at my comments months ago because
I quite like the abuse, actually, and I'm not joking. When you're over the target, when you're getting the right people, with I've also got a Blue Sky account. I should get a Blue Sky account myself.
Yeah, I recently went on not a left-leaning podcast. I went on Jackson Warren's podcast, which is Shane Warren's son.
Yeah.
And he's probably got a few left-leaning friends on there, and I went on there, and I went and checked the comments on one of his posts, and it's like lit it up. It's a different world, a different world. But I like to sometimes think that if I'm there out doing my thing, there's a whole bunch of people pissed off at me. Sometimes you are over the target with a whole bunch of stuff. But I think, look, there's a big, and this is what I want to talk to you about mainly, right? There's this massive rise up in the politics right now, and on the right side of politics, and Anthony Albanese seems to think that there's this dark force, and he tries to damper it. And there seems to be a whole bunch of people, right, trying to damper it and trying to push it down. And you're one of the only ones out there. I heard you the other day, maybe on ABC or SBS or Sky News, one of them say the Liberals need to adopt one nation's policies, otherwise they're going to become obsolete. And it's happening right now. Yeah. They are becoming obsolete. So what's your thoughts on all this?
Well, first of all, there is I sort of surround myself by this on a daily basis. And so the reality is people don't have time for politics. They've got other stuff to do. They've got more important stuff to do. They've always assumed that it's going to be all right. Regular people, right? Just normal Aussies who...
That's changing a bit now.
It's changing. It is. And we saw that with the hate groups bill. Yeah. That was the thing that I think that surprised a lot of people that I know in Canberra. People across this stuff, which is another subplot to all of this as well. But the bottom line is I think there is an element of the left in politics in particular that are desperately trying to find a villain in people like you, people like me, and they're trying to brand them as white Christian nationalists. This is like it's some sort of a subset of a hate group, or something like that. You see it all the way through government documents. You see it all the way through the security services. The ASIO annual report is just over the years has just been replete with all of these references to that.
Don't worry about the Bondi shooters though, and their fanatic.
Well, something like 15 of the last terror incidents in Australia. Almost all of them are not that. By the way, they're so it's look. I think it's happening worldwide in the West. I think we're seeing this all across the West. We see it in America. We see it in the UK. And we're seeing it in Australia now too. We saw it in New Zealand last week or something. The army were doing exercises. You probably saw that.
I reported on it on a podcast that I did. Yeah, they're doing exercises where they're getting the New Zealand army to hunt Christian groups.
That's right.
Instead of back in the day when we used to do it, we used to hunt the Taliban, Islamic State. And now they're hunting Christian groups, and it was like white Christian groups as well. Like, what the fuck's going on?
So this is it, right? This is what's happening. It's happening around us. And, I think, honestly, the establishment on both sides of politics, left and right, are worried about ordinary people taking an interest. And so that's been my push for a long period of time, is we've got to get those people back interested. Social media has done that. We now see, you've got the platform to do this now because you've built it. You couldn't do that 20 years ago. You can now. The internet was, in the 90s, if you're old enough to remember that, which I am, I remember the internet as it, first rolled out through dial-up. It was touted as the information superhighway, and it was going to spread freedom across the world. And then it started doing it in the West. And you could almost see the politicians going, well, don't spread your freedom here. Well, we want it off in, Estonia and wherever.
Talk about maths for us, will you?
Yeah.
Talk about maths. Married at first sight. You guys stick to
right.
that.
That's right. And so, you're like, if you wanted to get a message across back 20 years ago, you just had to go to the various heads of the media organisations and convince them. Now, you can do it in a room like this, and people listen to you, and they go, well, that's really interesting. And I think that really scares people. So we've seen the rollout of various, e-safety style offices. They call it different things in different countries, but it's a similar pattern of, this kind of, we need to protect the children. It starts off with the children. And in fact, the Office of the E-Safety Commissioner started off actually as the Office of the Children's E-Safety Commissioner, and then it ballooned. You can see that pattern all the way through Canberra with different laws. And I think that the establishment are very, very worried about regular people finding their voice, because that's bad for them.
Which is happening right now.
That's what's happening. So we've just got to keep it up, and we need more people inside the machine, outside and inside the machine, who understand that. I think there has been a certain complacency inside the right of politics in this country, that the Liberal Party has not, and I have said it many times, over the last 20 years has not evolved and adapted. The communication's no good. The whole thing that they do now is, having MPs have, I don't know because I don't do it, but in some areas they'll have quotas for, they'll impose their own quotas for social media. You've got to have social media hits all day, which inevitably involves in people putting up photos of themselves drinking coffee and taking the dog for a walk and trying to look relatable.
Sorry, try to jump in. I remember the first week back in Parliament, there was a whole bunch of TikToks that were happening. I'm just like, is this what we're paying our fucking tax bills to?
Yeah, that's right. So that's exactly what's happening.
This is embarrassing.
Yeah, and that's, like, everyone likes a bit of relatability, but it can't be confected relatability. It's like, and actually I don't really want to see what politicians do at home. I don't want to see you cooking a meal. I don't care. I don't want to see you doing chin-ups. Whatever. I just refuse to do any of that. What's interesting to me is seeing, people talking about, things that are actually a bit out of the box. Like this sort of stuff I find interesting. Stuff that you're talking about I find interesting. And so I think people are like that. They don't want to see people doing martial arts, like I'm doing martial. They want to see people fighting on the floor of Parliament for what they believe in. And so that's the challenge, is getting that. One Nation, I have said, I'm not here to shill for One Nation or Pauline. I know you've spoken to her. I like Pauline a lot. If she was from the left, she would be the most popular. The Archibald would have been one with her portrait, and she'd be, she'd have more letters after her name than the alphabet, but she's from the right, so, she's shoved off as a pariah. She's built an incredibly successful political platform party on the basis of just telling it like it is, That's it.
She hasn't changed her
She hasn't
message.
changed anything. And so that's the lesson for the rest of us from the right of politics is, it's got to stop being safe and confected. We're just got to tell it like it is. That's our One Nation is Liberal Party politics from 30, 40 years ago. That's it. So, that is frustrating, but...
the right side of politics also have to know now there's coverage in social media personalities like myself.
More coverage.
There's more coverage than ever before now. We are saying some wild... I'm not... I say some wild shit. I just speak truth that I think. But now that means that you guys can speak the same truth in Parliament House. You guys can have these discussions because we're having the battles on... Well, I think we're winning the battle as well out there. The shift is coming.
Yeah.
And these discussions now can be had in Parliament. Like, you have coverage now. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to lose votes.
Well, people know there are other people out there with us now. You didn't know that if you're opening a newspaper. You can't tell, how many people are opening this newspaper. Do they agree with me? You get the the letters to the editor, which I presume are just plucked out, like that's going to do that one. Here, and it's all about the reach. People are all, like, in political circles, they're just obsessed with morning radio. Like that's a marker. And I don't know what the various morning radio, listeners are, but I can't be more than 10,000, or I don't know. I really don't know. 50, maybe, I don't know, fleetingly in and out. Like you do that in the first 5 seconds of this pod. You're reaching millions.
So on my social media platform, one social media platform is Instagram. I have 25 million viewers average every single month.
There you go.
And then this podcast anywhere gets from between 500,000 and a million, and that's off anywhere from 6 to 8 episodes a month.
Yeah, so it doesn't make any sense. Like the fact that we're still catching up to that.
And ours is an hour and a half.
Yeah.
An hour and a half.
How long have we done?
Yeah, mate, we're in 15 minutes.
I feel like I'm out of stuff to talk about. Anyway, I'm not. I promise you I'm not.
I can talk, don't worry.
I've noticed. So, that's the thing. Like, it's just indicative of politics just not having progressed. It's like the right, and by the way, the left, are not much better at this. The Labor and the Greens, like, I don't want to see TikTok videos set to music. Like, that's not your job, like you say. And also, I think the other thing politicians need to get over is the fact that they think people are obsessed with what they do. Like, well, we'll do it. This is the autumn tree. This is at budget time. Do you know that? It's like the tree turns, I think I'm right about that, turns amber at budget time, and that's the thing.
I don't give a shit.
Don't care. You don't care because you're normal. But politics gets very interested in that stuff. So that, there's just this sort of, it's a very strange environment. Seems
really like it's like ideologically driven.
Yeah, well, it's even more than that. There's something that they say politics is a bubble and that Parliament House is a bubble, but it's really actually like a reinforced bunker. It's just you. When you walk through that door, you have to physically stop yourself. And I genuinely do this, and I've said it forever. I'd always look up at the flag on the way in and the way out, because that's what it's all about. Like it's not, you can get trapped in that environment, and it's all mainstream media in there, so they just filter and that's on the second floor, by the way. So I always think it's a bit like a it's sort of just trickle down. It starts, they set the tone for the day, and then everyone starts talking about it, and it's its own little world which is not plugged into the real world. It's really hard to describe, but it's why we need people in there who are a bit immune from it or don't like it. And I think the less you like the building, the more normal you are. I don't like it.
Well, I can tell. and this is a conversation I've had with a lot of people. It's very toxic, I've heard. Yeah,
well, I think it is. I think it's just the mindset.
Can I jump in? Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You can answer. Well, you can try and duck it. I've heard you have lunch by yourself. Is that true?
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I would many times a day. Yeah.
Why is that? Is that because that you, let's say for that, say for the hate speech bill, you're the only one, or maybe the only one in the Liberal Party to vote with us people. Everyone else rolled over. Like, do they not like you because you go against and you stay true to yourself rather than the party, and you stay true to the Australian people, or what you think you should do?
I'd just like to have lunch with my best friend. And while you were speaking, I was thinking about that. It came out, and I wasn't good. We'll do it again. Honestly, most of it's because you're on the run, but also I think you have to insulate yourself from the machine a bit. And I don't really do it on purpose, and I don't do it every day. And of course, people in the office as well. There's usually one or two of us in there, and we will often do that. But we are a little bit, you do tend to bunkerize yourself a little bit as well. It's really not conscious. It's just, I find sometimes I'm irritated in there, and you just don't want to, you find you don't really want to socialize as much as people think that it's just all late night drinking and that, because that's the way a lot of this stuff. I don't. Maybe I'm not invited, but
you're not invited.
I'm not. All right, I'm not invited, but I don't see a lot of that. I don't see it, but I just do think you just need to be. You have to sort of cut yourself off from the machine of it all, because it is a bit of a machine. There's just a way to do things, like, we do this, and then on this day we do this, and then something else we do this. And I just think you lose perspective on what people are actually thinking and doing and talking, and you have to try and cut yourself off from it a bit. And so I try to do that.
It's fair enough. I guess it's fair enough.
I'm also a bit of a loser.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I would love to go in there and just have lunch and see how people react.
To you? All right, well, we'll do it.
No, I'm not doing it. I fucking hate camera.
Yeah.
No, I don't hate Canberra because everyone always comes at me when I say I hate Canberra. I hate Parliament House because of what it represents and who's in there and who's running it. If it represented something different, then maybe, like this is one of the biggest things. David Pocock and all these people always come out about, we need to tax this sector and tax that sector and let's get our fair share of tax for this country. What, for the government just to spend it?
Yeah.
And this is, the more I start to get into this game, I'm making a little bit of money here and there, and now I'm making more, and it's like, well, I'm just getting taxed for the government to fucking throw it down the bin. Like, why do they need to tax big business if they just throw it all down the bin? I'm for taxing big business, but this country is just...
Yeah, I mean, there was this old clip, which people have probably seen, of Kerry Packer going into one of the Senate estimates hearings, and he was asked that question about, something about, paying tax, and he unashamedly said, I want to pay as little as I can. I mean, and they were ready to jump on him for that. And he said, well, you don't spend it properly. So that's how all of us feel. I mean, I think we're overtaxed and overregulated, and it's a complete disincentive. I mean, talk to anyone in business at the moment, they'll tell you how difficult it is and how crushing it is to be paying as much tax as they're paying. And government's just getting bigger. I mean, if you go anywhere in Canberra, all you see is apartment buildings going up. And I keep saying to people, is are these students? Are they coming in? Now, I think the answer is that it's bureaucracy. It's bureaucrats coming in. Because, I mean, the bureaucracy has grown in Canberra, and so there's still a market for accommodation. So none of that's helpful. Like, that's just us growing towards a more socialist, more communist-style government.
I think I read a stat before that 54% of people in Australia are relying on the government for their main source of income.
Yeah,
54%,
something like that.
What the hell's going on? You know what I mean?
Well, it's like that in South Australia where we are as well. I mean, it's and that's what Labor governments do. They brick it in, and it's a shame. I mean, we used to have all sorts in this state. We had Holden, we had manufacturing, we used to make pharmaceuticals here. Foldings were here. We had white goods, and you can't do that anymore. Power's too expensive. The regulations are too expansive, and it's just too hard. So everything's offshore. That's what globalism's done. It's a real shame.
That's it just makes me so angry. I'm doing a reel today, and it actually hit me right in the feels when I was watching it and thinking of what to talk about today. 7 News reported a couple of days ago, 1 in 3 kids are going to school. 1 in 3 kids are going to school without their lunch.
It's unreal.
And then last year it was 1 in 4. Yeah. I mean, like, if you want to think what a number which I would accept to be for that would be 1 in 100,000.
I'd be 0 if we could do it. Obviously,
0 if we could do it, but how are we living in a government where Anthony Albanese can spend $4.3 million in a mansion, tell us that the economy is fine, whilst they print massive amounts of debt, flood half the country into the planet every single fucking year, and then tell us that they are a very strong economy when 1 in 3 kids are going to school without their lunch.
Yeah, well, it's a ghost economy in that sense. It's the same in South Australia. Debt, I think, has exploded to 50 billion here. I mean, it's the same everywhere. Everything's kind of underwritten by public money now, which is the way these things roll out. I don't know if this is true, but I also heard, and this could be fact checked, that something like 1 in 6 Australians now are going with 1 meal a day themselves. And yet we are still sending money overseas. We are still funding the UN and the World Health Organization and sending money all over for climate change projects in the South Pacific. And it's just not right. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's not the money we're wasting on green energy projects. I mean, you could just, I keep joking, but we talk about the DOGE in the US, the Department of Government Efficiency. I reckon I could slash $1 trillion in about 30 minutes, just by no. And there is no basis for Australians. I always say this country, we should be rolling around in $100 notes, everyone. We are the most wealthy country with all the stuff that's under our feet. And if we got our act together properly, started utilising that and then doing something with it, because we're still a bit, one speed in terms of digging up and sending off, really we should be digging up, turning into something, making it and selling it and doing all the above, because we've got all the expertise. But we're our own worst enemy. We keep electing people that don't want to really do anything but feather their own nest.
For example, in South Australia, we have some of the world's greatest uranium. Mm-hmm. The world's greatest uranium. I mean, and I know for a fact as well that some of that uranium goes over to the US to rearm the nuclear arsenal. And we can't use it here to set up a nuclear plant to give us really cheap energy. But no, we have to rely on our wind and solar. And like Peter Malinauskas, I mean, I'm sure Peter Malinauskas went to the federal government and said, hey, can we use our uranium to look at a nuclear reactor? And I reckon they went, no way, because it's not in line with us.
Well, I look, that might be the case. I don't know. But I mean, we're 10 years out from the scarce Royal Commission on Nuclear, which was a very competent blueprint for how it should be done, digging up uranium, using it for fuel, selling it overseas and bringing the spent fuel back to store, the whole fuel cycle, the whole lifespan, which, the numbers that were, and of course models and numbers are always wrong, but the numbers that were being talked about in that document, which you can see online, were astronomical in terms of sovereign wealth funds, like to cover things like kids going to school without meals, so you had to fund programs to make sure they did all of that stuff. That's all true. It's just there's no sense in this. It's one line in the Environment Protection Biodiversity Act, one line, which is a strict prohibition on the use of that material for fuel. And it's sort of the entry point. The last election, Labor really did a number on that. The costings were too, if people knew the amount of money we're spending on transmission lines and to get to net zero, they're talking sort of $3 trillion to get there.
And then taking away farmers' land.
And taking away farmers' land, and in some cases, potentially poisoning it forever. Solar panels leak.
I had a guy on yesterday. I've already released the episode. His name's Ben, and he's a part of a movement called Farmers Fight Back in Victoria. And they are literally having the Victorian government try and seize farm off them, but these guys are coming out with bulldozers and pushing back and telling the police to get stuffed.
Yep.
It's and to hear it firsthand, because you just read these things, and this guy comes, he's like, we are like rallying the troops and getting everything, and we're gonna fight and die on our land. I'm like, fuck yeah.
The farmers, I think, are the ones who are like right in the crosshairs on this, because the climate change brigade, they want to tell you that cows are killing the planet, the methane's killing it. And
extra tax, though, will fix that, right?
Yeah, taxing always fixes everything. And sarcasm. The farmers really do need to understand what's ahead. Like it's we talk a lot about you will eat the bugs and you're going to own nothing and you'll be happy, but I was at a conference on the weekend, and there were some really interesting speakers there. One of them posed the theory that the Americans never really killed communism off. We thought we won the Cold War, but in truth, the Americans really just beat the Soviet model of communism, and the ethos itself, the Bolshevism, percolated around for 10 years or so, and it sort of re-emerged in a different way. It's sort of exactly as Margaret Thatcher said. She sort of talked about communism never goes away, it just changes its clothes, and in words to that effect, I paraphrased it, but it really did. The Chinese model of communism now addressed a lot of the problems and the frailties in the Soviet model, which was the central control, and adapted it because they could see the writing on the wall, so they had to adapt, and they changed that back to a market-driven authoritarian style, which I think private equity has taken on, and we can see that now living on through some of these, some big business as well now. They've sort of adopted a lot of that ethos, and it's come back at us. And they've got their messengers in the media, in Hollywood. Many of the sporting leagues around the world are sort of, pushing that barrow, and that's why we get...
The AFL has turned completely woke.
This is why we get DEI and everything. And I just, it's sort of, you ask yourself, what's the point of music? What's the point of movies? What's the point of sport? Well, it's not to pitch a political message, and it never should have been. I talked about that in my maiden speech and got howled down for it, about the number of rounds. You've always got a round for everything rather than just footy round. So they said, well, which one would you remove? I just said all of them. Like, it's not a political statement. So anyway, it's everywhere, and so we haven't beaten that ethos, and it has come back. And look, one school of thought is we just have to go through that process a bit like Eastern Europe did. They really did. They went through the process. Eventually, people got sick of having nothing, and kids going to school without meals like they had, except much worse. And they threw off the shackles. And now you've got places like Poland and Hungary that are sort of effectively thriving, having lived through it. So my fear is that we're going to have to go through that same ringer.
What's your prediction with time frame and all this, having to go through the really dark, deep stages of communism to get our way back out?
Well, I hope it's not I hope it's not too long. I don't really know. I don't think you can predict with any great certainty, and you'd be a fool to try and do that. But
one would think right now, I mean, I'm looking at the polls, you're looking at the same polls, right? There's something coming back.
Yeah. Well, and look, and actually the rest of the world has gone through a lot of this already. You know, we're always a few years behind. The United Kingdom is going through a similar push. I mean, you know, like there's this sort of theory inside the establishment of the right in Australia that populism's bad, you know, like it, and which is something I've just never understood. So the concept of, you know, you hear it all the time, like, oh, that's a populist party, or that's a populist position. And when you actually look, if you just go and simply, and if we, like Rogan, if we had a guy here to do it, we could get him to bring up the definition. But
yeah, I don't have that many sponsors yet, mate.
But if you did, you'd see that populism really is just simply speaking on behalf of regular people against elites. Like, that's almost literally the definition. And yet politics from the right has sort of turned its nose up at that for a long period of time. And really that's what it should be, and I don't understand why it is, and I don't understand why that is given such a bad rap. You see it in the UK. Reform is now taking over the political reins from the Conservative, the Tory party, who are getting defections every week. You know, people are leaving.
It's like our Liberal Party, isn't it?
Not quite, but we are a little bit behind the times. Like we are literally sort of 2 or 3 years behind, and so you know there are. I mean, it's a long way to go to the next UK election, but there's a very strong chance Nigel Farage is going to be the Prime Minister. So, and the US, we've seen MAGA, same principle. People just getting sick of globalism, being told that their jobs are getting offshored, tired of the climate change nonsense. So we are getting our dose of that at the moment.
I think I reckon there's going to be a twist with Reform. I think Restore Britain is going to jump up.
Yeah.
Reform came out and said they couldn't deport millions of people. Then Rupert Lowe came out and said we can. So they're the more hardcore version of Reform.
It's another battle.
And I actually think that Restore Britain is going to take power over there because they're more hardcore on the deportations. And I don't know, you probably listen to a lot of my stuff, and you know how hardcore I am on immigration. And I think that I actually think One Nation is not going anywhere near hard enough on immigration, and I think that would need to be reviewed or anything like that with what they do going forward. But
one of the problems with it is, and this is the thing people need to be a little bit conscious of, and I know there's no excuses on that, but the framework now around hate speech as a result of things that have happened in Parliament makes it very difficult to talk about it fearlessly without attracting attention from the authorities.
You're talking about the recent bill that they put through?
Well, there's two. So there's one in New South Wales, which is a state-based law, and so that talks about hate speech, and I think there are a couple of others as well. I don't know about the other jurisdictions, but there's certainly laws on the books in Australia which talk about hate speech, raising anxiety and fear in among ethnic groups. I mean, on the surface, it all sounds, okay, well, fair enough, we shouldn't be doing that. But the way in which it's weaponised is the thing politics misses all the time. And we've seen rumblings about Pauline being on the wrong side of that. Because if you make a public statement, so on TV, on a podcast, anything like this, there is the potential for you to be in trouble, like literally in criminally trouble. So, I mean, look, it's not a huge threat, but it is a threat. So that does that does what it's meant to do, which is put a dampening effect on discussing the very real issue of immigration and what the right level is. The hate groups bill, which was passed, was a little bit different. That's the one that Parliament passed a couple of weeks ago. And different but similar in the sense that what that is trying to do is set up a framework for groups being designated as bad, so like you're a hate group now because you did these things, which by the way can be retrospective. And I mean, people were telling me, that voted for it, that, oh, well, it's, improved now because it's not a hate speech law, but it's actually worse, I think. I think it might be worse because you can now, if you have a local community group talking about immigration, for example, and you set it up and the opportunity there is for you to be listed, literally listed and criminalised for talking about things that might be relevant.
Why did your party vote for it and you're the only one to vote against it, or maybe the only one to vote against it? Maybe there might have been another couple too, but why did you make a stand and say no?
Well, I think there were a couple of mistakes made. I think the first one was to demand that Parliament do something. We already have enough laws on the books that should have dealt with that Bondi scenario.
That was a bit of a slip up from Susan Ley, wasn't it?
Well, I think it was just a general mistake to sort of try and recall Parliament. I wouldn't have done that personally. I wouldn't. I just don't. If we did it, then it should have been for condolence motions, all of that stuff, to talk about the terrible events, all of that stuff. Got it. I'm all fine. the one thing we almost certainly don't need is as many laws that are being passed through that building as a general rule. I mean, every week I look at it and I think, okay, I know there are tweaks that need to be made because, the financial sector moves and, the tech space is different and there's always laws that need to be tweaked and whatever. But we're passing a lot of laws. There's a school of thought that suggests that we should be repealing laws because, and particularly laws that relate to creating statutory bodies and putting more bureaucrats in and all of that. A lot of it's to do with that. So that's the first thing. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have asked for Parliament to be... And when it did, Labor threw up the response, which was, here's a bill which is just diabolical.
It was a hand grenade.
Total hand grenade. And I always say...
And he said to the Liberal Party, catch.
Yeah, catch. And it literally was like that. It was like, I say, we ended up voting on a bill that was diabolical and we voted on the revised version, which was only terrible. It was sort of like that, and I just think... I wouldn't have gone near it, and I didn't, and I can't vote. I have to vote with my conscience. I do sometimes. I cross the floor a bit too much. I'm hoping that will not be the case as much anymore because the party line will improve under Angus, which I think it will. In the case of that, why did I do it and no one else did? I can't answer that. I think my feeling was that even though we can see that there are groups out there that we don't like, that you cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to free speech. It's as simple as that, because it only takes a change in dynamic to go from, well, this is, his but ulterior, that's the one we're after, but now we're after the Two Worlds Collide podcast because they're also, whatever. And that always gets cast off as being ridiculous. But we saw during COVID how laws that were already on the books, some of them can be, like the Turnkey Society, can be used against us when we have no idea of how they can even be tweaked or just used as they are. And I think I don't know, I think Parliament has to get a bit smarter than that. People have got to see the writing for the writing on the wall and the wood for the trees, as they say. Where could this go? We did it like a year earlier across the floor on a different version, which was the Hate Symbols Bill, which was designed to criminalise now a 12-month head sentence for displaying a swastika. Okay, now I've got no love for the swastika. I'm not here to defend any of that. I want to be very clear about it. But we are only one step removed from, and people would laugh at this. They'll say, "Oh, it'll never happen."
Banning the cross.
Banning the cross. There you go. So that's the problem with these laws: is we have to, like, criminal actions, calling for death, calling for mayhem, no tolerance for it, not interested, don't want to hear about it, obviously. But there's always another way that this can play out. And I just think, we have to be smarter than that from the right of politics. And I don't think people, if we had said no to both of those bills, Labor would have come out and said, oh, there you go, the hard right, the far right. But there's a lot of people that are looking for that elsewhere. We can see in the sometimes 30% that are now voting for One Nation that there are a lot of people that don't buy that malarkey. And
I also think them polls aren't accurate. I think One Nation is polling higher.
Well, it could be. I mean, they're all different, aren't they? Polls are just, they go this way, they go that way, and we never know until polling day. That's the old line. That's my politician line. Oh, I don't believe in the polls. I'm only interested in the election day, which is just,
But
you can lean over and smash me for that. But so yeah, you might be right. I mean, I just think ultimately, like the Liberal Party across the country is at a point where it needs to I don't know how much more obvious it needs to be made when you're running third in some seats, that the playing field's changed. Like, it's not 2004 anymore.
Can I be honest with you? Completely honest?
Please.
I think the Liberal Party's done, mate.
This sort of presupposes you weren't being honest up to that point. Yeah, look, I don't know. I don't think that. I really don't. And it doesn't take much of a
comeback from
that. Yeah, I do. I think that there's 80 years of history there, and it is the most successful brand. People are angry at the moment, and I get it. But here in SA, we've really tried to restump the house, and we've done a great job, and we're getting lots of good people involved. See, political parties are actually only there. See, this is a bit back to the footy analogies, right? Which because I'm a bit stupid. You always just have to.
You're a bit of a footy player?
Well,
when you were younger?
No, that was a long time ago, and I was.
You love footy, though?
I love footy, but I was never any good. Like, I know that's the sort of hackneyed thing you have to do, but it's genuinely true.
Typical politician.
Yeah, I know. I was no good. I played C. I did. So, I mean.
Well, Peter Malinowskis is your average C grade player. So.
Yeah. That's right.
Really
but it was
appealing
I was
to
a
the
fullback.
people, right?
I was a fullback, and that's where you plant everyone that can't play.
Yeah. You got discipline though, right?
Well, not really. Like footy. So if you look at let's go back to that. Who do you follow? You follow the Crows, or
yeah.
Okay, so I'm a Crows
when
fan
they're winning.
Well. Yeah. Well, that's for my, I went to the first practice game. They played Essendon. A lot of people think it was Hawthorn in round 1 in 91. It was actually 2 weeks earlier, I think, or 3 weeks earlier they played Essendon. Grantley Filkey kicked the first goal from 30 out right in front. I was there. So I'm a long-time tragic of the Adelaide Crows. The Crows of, I don't want to be too unkind, I won't pick an era for fear of upsetting people, but the Crows of a particular era, like be it, the 2000s when they had a little bit of success but not so much, is a very different beast to the 97, 98 premiership teams. The same organisation filled with different people. And so I think, like politics is a bit like that as well. I mean, there's no reason why the Liberal Party can't get back to doing what it did under Menzies, which was speak for the forgotten people. That was the point of politics. There are people that take a very different view of the party, and they've said it's a broad church. I don't think it's that broad personally, but anyway, Menzies his whole pitch was to the forgotten people. His idea was, we don't speak for organised capital, and we don't speak for big capital, that is big business. We don't speak for organised labour. We speak for mums and dads that want to run a business, people, families, dog, cat, home, and that's everyone basically. That's almost everyone. And if you read the We Believe statement, it's still very true, but you've just got to, what you're putting out has got to reflect that. And, actually Trump, I think I'm right in saying, pinched a lot of Menzies' stuff in his very first inauguration speech. He said the forgotten people will be forgotten no longer. That's what the party is about. It's got to get away from this kind of, we've got to appeal to people in inner city Sydney. That's not going to win. Outer Metro is going to win.
Yeah, that's the problem with the Liberal Party. There are too many moderates, and like that, and look, like they might balance out the party and stuff like that, but when Jane Hume comes out and still tells the Australian people that immigration is still going to be, I think she said something like, we're still going to be importing from the world and we're not going to choose and be selective where we're importing from in one of her speeches. And then Angus Taylor was like, we don't have a hard line on immigration. I'm just like, guys, I mean, like if you think that I'm going to come back and be a Liberal supporter after you guys saying that, no way.
Well, the message has got to be right, and the difficulty is that I think if you're trying to pitch a message to everyone, you're trying to, to the sort of wealthy people that live in, wherever, North Shore in Sydney, and also people that are living in outer metro seats who are just literally trying to get through. Like that's most people. You can't pitch a mixed message like that. It's got to be aimed at the party's ethos, and that is, I think, aimed more at the outer metro seats and rural seats as well. And so, look, the messaging's got to be right. And, that's the challenge now. The challenge is getting that right. And my challenge, I think, is to try and continue to pitch that inside the tent, pull the strings back to that kind of messaging because, I think it is too easy to get caught up in the, well, I heard this on the ABC, we've got to talk about it. The
ABC. But this is where you've got coverage now, right? Because it's just social media. There are like hundreds of me. Like this time last year, there was me and Big Chocky, and we started off at 10,000 followers each, and we just ramped it and went as hard as we could.
Yeah.
Now there's like 100 of us, just everywhere.
Yeah.
Just right wing social commentators that are pushing
toxic
back.
males everywhere.
Oh, mate, that's straight white male.
Yeah.
The most dangerous
creature on the planet.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of safety, and I think to myself, when Jane Hume says something like that, and then Angus Taylor isn't going hard enough on immigration, I'm like, guys, like, there's no way you're going to get any of your voter base back here. I sometimes think maybe they left there. Maybe Susan Ley did too much damage, and it's too far gone. That's what I think to myself.
Yeah,
that's what I feel
Well, I think, there is a long way back at the moment. The polls suggest that, right? The polling in SA is 14% on some. Like, that's a primary vote.
Oh, yeah,
so
they're like not going to win a seat.
I don't know that that's. I don't know that it's as bad as that. But there's a long way back. Like, there's a long way back to restore a lot of trust. That's the fact. That's not trying to. You could get a bum in a street and throw an orange top on him, and he would win. He would win a seat. I don't know. Look, we'll see how it plays out. I don't know that it's quite as bad as that, but certainly that.
Maybe I'm just a doomsday talking it down a lot.
Yeah, there are a lot of challenges between now and then, a lot, and I think that. Politics is like marketing in a sense. You can't ignore that. Like, that's not us just waxing lyrical about it. That's just a fact. Like, it's and we always trust the science, right? You've got to trust the science, trust the stats. That's joking, by the way. But, those polls they're not in isolation. There's not one that says, 18% and then another that says 50. They're all kind of hovering around that margin. And all across the country, One Nation's numbers are growing. That's your message right there.
In socialist Melbourne.
Yeah.
Like Victoria, it's just Dan Andrews destroyed that.
Well, that's always the argument, right? The argument is always, from the left of the party, is always, you need to swing further to the left to appease the inner city. We need to be more climate changey and more this, that, and the other. And the reality is, people even in left-leaning areas are crying out for the same message, which is small government, focusing on families, the forgotten people. It's the same thing. So
we also just want cheaper living.
Cheaper living, like, that's the number one concern. And it's not enough to just say it. We're addressing that. Well, what are you doing? And it's like Trump said. Like, they asked him before the election in 24, what's the one thing you could do in order to make things cheaper? And he said, drill, baby, drill. And that's, it's true everywhere. Like, if we just got power cheaper, everything follows from there, because everything needs to be transported.
Everything we go down.
That's right. That's your simple answer there. So we've got to be brave enough to say it.
What's your thoughts with Anthony Albanese attacking the right so much? Is he fearing something rising up?
Yeah, I think they're very scared of it. I think we're getting to the point where
I think he's shitting himself.
Well, I think that look, one thing about Labor is they're very good at the politics and very bad at the government. That's the Labor movement.
They're very, very good at I was talking to Rennick about this. He said the Labor Party are very, very good at identity politics and arguing with you.
Yeah, but
they're shit at governing.
That's right. So they can see the writing on the wall.
Do you like Rennick?
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. Yeah. He has been for a lot. We fought in the trenches on COVID.
I like him. I like Rennick.
He's got a.
I want to have him back on the podcast.
Yeah, he's a really interesting guy, but he's too smart for his own good. Like, he is so smart. Keeping up with him is hard work. I remember I rang him once and I said, mate, can you just explain to me this? And I can't remember what it was. It was something about climate change.
He's a genius.
He's a genius. And he started, and before I knew it, I just couldn't keep up, and I was just punch drunk after 40 minutes.
He also needs to be running our country economically.
He is so across.
He needs to be the treasurer.
The detail, yeah. He's the sort of he'd be the RFK guy you'd put in as a hand grenade to blow it all up. He would be magnificent. He's also the leader of another party. There you go. I'm just praising other parties. He's on a personal level, he is just a very, very good bloke.
I like him.
I also, one story I got to tell you. He came over. Couple of years ago for me, a mutual friend of ours down in the southeast, Jackie Bateman, who's a great person, invited him down, and she is a legend, and she put on a show for us, and we spoke, and he sort of went, he sort of into COVID. Everyone was interested in COVID then, because it was only 3 or 4 years past, and still fresh, and it is still fresh in everyone's minds, and we're not forgetting about it. But he sort of immediately, in front of a fairly big crowd down in the southeast, just started getting into the weeds. There's all this lipid nanoparticles and ribosomes and all this sort of stuff. And you could see people kind of, the eyes were kind of, it was good for 20 minutes, but he's talking for an hour and a half about quantum physics and he goes, at the end of it, he goes, mate, how was that? That's his voice, by the way. And I said it was excellent. But look, when we get to town, because he was coming down to Adelaide the following day, and we had a big crowd, like about 500 or 600 people coming to see him. I said, look, just, and I don't know, because I don't know anything about anything, but certainly not about lipid nanoparticles. But I would stay out of the weeds, because I think people want a higher level, look at it. And he goes, yeah, mate, no worries. Yeah, no, you're right. I just got a bit carried away. I get a bit, I said, okay, all right. So anyway, so we sat off and first day and, and he started the same speech and he started talking about, broad stuff. And then I could see it coming and he went straight in it. But the problem here is lipid nanoparticles and he went straight. And quantum physics and the gold reserve and the whole thing. And he's just too across it. Like he's just so smart. And a real shame. I miss him around there. I used to, I would spend a lot of time talking to him.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
Yeah. So,
back to Anthony Albanese really panicking about the rise up of the right.
Yep.
So what's your thoughts on that? Are they actually panicking?
Well, I don't know, but I keep seeing it. He went to a school the other week and said, the thing I like about coming to school, and I'm paraphrasing here, right? So but the thing I like about coming to schools is, that they haven't seen the influence of the far right or something like that. I mean, that's a strange thing to say in front of school kids. I think we are. So they always say conservatism or the right is like a counterculture. I think we're seeing more of it out of kids now because really, what has the right given young men?
They've just attacked them.
They just attacked them for 25 years, if not longer.
And then they wonder why a whole bunch of them now are turning towards neo-Nazism.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. This is what Canavan said about Andrew Tate. He said, well, what do you expect people are going to do? Like, they're going to be people that are just going to fly off the handle and follow the wrong rabbit down the wrong hole.
Do you want to know my target audience?
Yep.
18 to 35-year-old males.
Yep.
Go figure.
Figure.
They're looking for a stronger male figure,
of course, obviously.
But they're looking for someone that talks up a bit of common sense, and they are naturally drawn to me. Yeah. That's my highest target audience.
I about 2 years ago, I've got this barbershop that I go to that does an excellent job, as you can tell, and they're great blokes, and they're they've got places all around Adelaide, and it's unique. No, not unique to that sort of environment, and. I was just talking to them and sitting there and chatting and talking about stuff, and it just reminded me that those barbershops are now like little microcosms where men. It's like a little men's club where they got a TV on the wall. Some of them have got pool tables and a PlayStation, and occasionally someone even made a comment about a nice-looking woman that walked past, which is enough to get you listed these days. And I thought, this is the problem. Like everyone's shrunk away from it, and no one's talking on behalf of men. And it's not, if they're speaking about men in Canberra, it's all about domestic violence and toxicity and, all sorts of things like that. And the reality is we should be finding ways for men to make their life easier, marry, reduce the tax burden on them so they can have more children, we can have more kids here. And, also, not create this kind of, environment where people feel like they're doing the wrong thing just by being normal. We've completely lost all the good stuff out of this country that men used to have. Like the 80s and the 90s when I grew up were just a different era. And you'd have people say, "Oh, well, there's a lot of bad stuff that doesn't happen." Maybe, but we've thrown a lot of the good stuff out. And we've given them, more importantly, we've given young men nothing to feel aspirational about. Like property prices are now through the roof. Everything's too expensive. Young men tell me that they are now so concerned about money that they're frightened to ask women out because they can't afford to go and take someone out for dinner or drinks. In my case, it wasn't a problem because no one would say yes. But if for other more useful humans, that's just so. What does that mean? Well, I don't know, but we've created a world where we make aborting baby, I won't get into this if you don't want to, but aborting babies easy, euthanasia easy, and the fertility rates dropped through the floor. What do you mean?
We aborted 220,000 babies last year.
Yeah.
And our birth rate is at 1.42 per female.
That's right. And families are crying out for them.
20 years ago, it used to be at 2.1. That's what we needed to sustain a population.
Yeah, that's right. That's the effect.
And we are paying a lot of money to these women to abort these babies.
Yep, and we've. One of the things that started.
I'm having Joanna Howe.
Yeah,
she's on the podcast next week.
Is she?
Yes.
You say hi from me.
Yeah, are you a fan?
I like Jo. Yeah, I like Jo a lot. We've known each other from.
I'm looking forward to sit down with her.
Yeah, she's a real fighter. She doesn't always, people don't always like the way she does it, but she's effective. And I'm not saying that's me. I think she's been very, very effective in that space. She's brought to light some really important issues that I think, there's a sort of a feeling out there on these pro-life issues that people should shy away from them. The old classic is no uterus, no opinion. I mean,
my body, my choice. Right? What about with COVID?
Yeah, COVID changed all of that. It was your body, my choice. The government said so. And I think that's also important as well. People just need to understand the hypocrisy that exists in politics. Like, just we know what's real, we know what's true. It is not right to be aborting babies at 39 weeks or right up to the day of birth. That is not okay. And they'll tell you it doesn't happen. Well, I mean, I think it was a year and a half ago, Joe proved and showed statistics that showed that since the bill was introduced, something like 47, I think, babies had been aborted in the last,
and they just take them out and leave them there to die by themselves.
Yeah, that doesn't happen in SA because there were the amendments that were put through to that bill protected that, but that's not the case interstate. So we actually had Matt Canavan and I had a bill up to make sure that babies got medical care if they were the product of a failed abortion. They'll tell you that doesn't happen, but it does.
Mm-hmm. I like Matt. He's a good guy.
He's a great guy.
He's I like him. I've
He's
had him on the
Aussie.
podcast. Yeah. I think he's a good guy. I think he's one of... Look, I don't think there's many people that are good guys or good females in Parliament House, but there are a couple.
And
I think he's one of them.
Outstanding. He is a genuinely... he's a genuinely principled guy that speaks with his conscience. He is.
Do you think he's worried about losing his seat next federal election because there's the One Nation rise? Obviously, in places like where he's from, this like rural sort of area.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope people see what he does and what an asset he is, and they appreciate that and return him. I hope. But look, it's no doubt about it. I mean, One Nation's an existential threat to the Nats. It's an existential threat to the Liberal Party, and we got to deal with it.
Someone sent me, one of the guys in my lobbying group actually sent me a graph, and it was the Yes Vote campaign and the rise of One Nation.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like a pivotal point where they said if One Nation went past this barrier and it dropped off, they would die. But it's went the other way.
Yeah.
It's went up, and they're almost saying what these graphs are saying, that this is a beast that cannot be stopped. Yeah. Pauline Hanson could come out and do whatever she wants almost, and she would not lose votes. Yeah. People are just that fed up. The rule I'm going to do this afternoon, 1 in 3 kids are sending or going to school without their lunch. The rule that I did yesterday, I mean, it got like 40,000 likes of me just bagging out Anthony Albanese and having a crack at him. And this is the big thing with the Carl Stefanovic podcast as well. He went hard at him early with the gas royalties, and then he really softened off, and Anthony Albanese ran rings around him and sort of dominated that podcast. And the issue with Carl Stefanovic and his team, they underestimated the hate out there for Anthony Albanese, and he started his podcast with having Pauline Hanson, Barnaby Joyce, Jacinta Price, a lot of these like right-wing figures. And then he went on, and he had me and Chocky on the week before. Mm-hmm. And then he had Anthony Albanese on, and he built up this hardcore right audience, and the fallout has been huge because people were underestimating the hatred for Anthony Albanese. Now, what I'm saying and what I'm bringing all this back together is, I mean, it could be anyone that is in that orange team, but people just don't care. I mean, I had a mate come over from Sydney the other day, and he had dinner with him on Monday night. Inner city Bondo guy, right? Mm-hmm. Normally a Labor voter. Mm-hmm. He sat down and he goes, Sam, I fucking hate Anthony Albanese. I don't care who comes in. I'm voting as far right as I can because I hate Anthony Albanese and I hate Labor. Yeah. 2 years ago, he was preaching to me why I should be a Labor voter my whole life. And he's just flip-flopped. Yeah. He's just like, Sam, I don't care. I don't care who's in. I don't care.
It's changed. Look, and it has. And I mean, I think we saw a bit of this in the 2016 election in the US, where the establishment would try to throw shade at Trump. You remember there was all that stuff about...
Every single time they throw shade, though, they get more powerful.
This is the problem, right?
And they can't read it. It's like, fix the country if you want to do that.
Yeah, exactly right. So the attacks, and I'm sure they will come on Pauline, are misguided. Once again, I'm not a press secretary, and I'm just trying to speak honestly about this. You will not win that fight. It is people are fed up. It was the same with Trump. Like the sorts of things that he said and were said about him would have finished a political opponent years before, but people were so ready for a hero that they were prepared to forgive him for everything and anything, and still are. And that is the same dynamic happening 10 years later, probably a little bit less. And I think you're right. I think people are just ready to, the conditions have got to have been right. I mean, I think to a certain extent it's delayed in Australia because we did have 10 years of coalition government, which did, not enough. I mean, we never move forward.
Well, they swung quite left.
In some instances, that's right. I mean, I was part of that.
Especially with the green energy sector.
All of that. We should never have done that. And I've got the receipts. I spoke against it even when we were doing it in 2001 at the end of that election.
Because a lot of people remind me in my comments there, like, the right side of government started the green energy sector.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, look, I think I'm right in saying the coalition signed up to Kyoto, the original version, the pre-Paris version. So that's, I mean, look, the message for the right of politics is you're not going to acquiesce your way to victory. The old expression is feeding the alligator hoping you get eaten last. That's not working. That's just clearly not working. So, and attacking people, we saw a lot of that in SA. There was a lot of attacking of One Nation when I think Sarah Game was the One Nation member of the Legislative Council here in SA. It doesn't work. You've got to be better. You've just got to be better. And you've got. It's like you're not going to go out and buy a Samsung phone just because they're yelling at Apple. It's not. I'm always interested by politics not understanding these sorts of things, and maybe it's, I don't know. It's
every
too easy.
Single time someone attacks me, my profile grows massively. I have there are pages now dedicated out there that clip up my stuff daily and just go at me daily. But I swear, ever since they have started, my following has increased by about 25%.
That's the Streisand effect. People want to know what this is all about. Who is this guy? What's
they're also talking to an audience which maybe think that they're a freaking retard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just, you know what it's like. You hear something. I mean, music did this for years, didn't it? Like it was like, kind of, whatever the genre is, it was dangerous. If it was in the 90s, it was gangster rap, and if it was death metal before that, and rock and roll was, subversive in its day, and people then would get interested. That's just human nature. So they want to hear what they're doing that's getting people's attention. So it's a very bad strategy, and I'm just sad that I don't get more abuse, because I would like it. So if you're out there and you'd like to abuse me, I shouldn't say that, should I? That's a joke. Still got a sense of humour.
But this is the thing. People just don't learn. I would have thought the Labor government was smarter than this. I would have thought that they would have, seen what's happened overseas, and it just, I mean, to me, it's like, hey, how about you just fix the country? Yeah. How about you come out and just be like, okay, so what we've been doing for the past few years doesn't work.
Yep.
This green energy sector doesn't work.
Yep.
This printing of mass debt doesn't work.
Yep.
We're going to go back to our schooling system and say, hey guys, there's two genders.
Yeah.
We're going to protect our females in our female spaces and not let dudes run around in there. This is the sort of stuff that there's a massive portion of politics on the right side that are just screaming out for someone to represent, and the more you push against it, the bigger it gets.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they talk about the far right. If you listen to Labor in Canberra, they're always talking about the far right taking over the Liberal Party. I mean, it's just nonsense. It's just absolute nonsense. Of course, far right today is what about normal was 20 years ago. By the way,
5 years ago.
5 years ago is probably better. But the real story actually is that the left have taken over the Labor Party. That's actually the real story. They're I mean, I couldn't. What was the one the other day? I couldn't get. I'm just trying to think. I try and introduce, bills so that we can at least talk about them. So I introduced my childhood gender transition prohibition bill. It was, and it actually we managed to introduce it into the last Parliament, the 47th, and then we talked about. I couldn't get it to the floor to vote because of various procedural rules, which I'm not going to bore you with now. But we managed to talk about it and do some petition work on it and get a bit of thing. I tried to introduce it into the 48th Parliament, which is a rubber stamp job normally. Particularly if it's been introduced in a previous Parliament, the government of the day will allow that, and they voted against it. It doesn't even feature on the list now. That which is unheard of. They didn't even get to second reading, as they call it. So, I mean, I just I don't. And we're talking about putting a moratorium on children, having surgery or puberty blocking drugs. That's it. That's all we're talking about. It's like it's radioactive in that building. Parliament House, sadly, is not. I have said, and people could see it. I spoke about it years ago. It is not. It is the least representative building in the country. I think you would get more representation out of Ultimo ABC headquarters. Honestly,
yeah,
I reckon. I reckon you would. It is the least representative building. If you walk around in that building, it is not Australia as I know it.
Actually, Barnaby told me an interesting stat when I had him on last week that 70% of the bureaucrats in there are Green voters.
It would be at least that.
That is so far from what Australia is.
Well, you just demonstrably that's true. Like the numbers don't support that. The Greens are at about 14% or something. So, I occasionally, what's really interesting is occasionally you get someone from a department come up and go, good on you, well done, like that, and you sort of,
oh, I didn't know you were
this
one
is
of
a
us.
plant. It's a plant. I'm not saying anything. You wearing a wire, or occasionally a bureaucrat in there will get you. Mostly. I won't because I won't name anyone, but mostly you're just pretty sure you're not on the same wavelength. But occasionally you'll get someone who works in the building who will just tell you on the quiet that good on you. But other than that, it's pretty lonely place. I got to tell you, it's a funny building. I often say it's like opening the doors to Narnia. Like you walk in and it's just like, what is this? Looks kind of like a place you might go, but it's not any place that I've seen. It's very hard to describe.
I've been invited there 3 times and I've just thought to myself every time, no, I'm not. I mean, I'm at the point, mate, and I think a lot of Australians here, I am past the point of debate. Like I am past the point of debate with the Labor Party and who is running this country. And if I seen any of these people, I am more likely to run up and just abuse them. Not physically, but abuse them rather than, sit there and debate them. Like if you're Anthony Albanese, if I had Anthony Albanese in here for an hour and a half, I mean, I would systematically tear shreds off him in a way where he wouldn't walk up and get out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it's just. Whether a year ago I would have been like, yeah, come in, Abbo, let's talk about what you like to do. I want to know what you are. Now I'm like, come in here and tell me why you're sending, 33% of children to school without food. Tell me why you're doing that. Yeah. And then I'll tear him up on it.
Obviously, you mean verbally and figuratively rather than physically. We'll just be clear about that because, of course, we don't endorse that. Just to be clear, it's my one little nod to the way we do things. But I know there is a lot of I know
everyone's angry.
Everyone's angry. I know there's a lot of anger about what's happening. I know that. And look, the way to fix that is to to provide an alternative path. That's what we have to do. That's our job, is to provide something which allows people in 2 years to say, right, that's the solution, and that's the challenge.
One of the questions out there is, do you think we can hold off another 2 years? I mean, look, you have to say yes, right? But
I'm worried about it. I remember watching what happened in the US with 4 years under the Biden administration and thinking, how bad can it get before you're, 300 meters down in a 100-meter relay race. I think the US is struggling from that as well. We are too. We're sort of getting into the world now where if we don't have something very different, when the right of politics gets the reins back, not just talking about, everyone always talks about cutting red tape, cutting green tape, but actually doing it, and like throwing the shackles off. I'll tell you, one of the interesting things I noticed is when I was about 10 years ago, I went on a trip back to where Dad was born in Belgrade, and it was a bit earlier than that.
Serbian, aren't you?
Yeah. So Dad's side were from Belgrade in the 50s. They came out. So
they came out after the war.
Yeah, after the war, and so, but they went through a period of this kind of hybrid version of market socialism, but communism basically, and it took a long time in my view, for people in that country to sort of get used to the market again. So you'd go into a shop in the days of, in the 2000s, and people just wouldn't serve you, because they never had to, because they were operating in a market socialist sort of style where you just turn up and whatever's available you get, and the customer service element was really missing compared to markets like the United States where you get that. So I worry that a lot of the country is going to get used to being on the government drip feed, and we're training a generation of kids that it's,
that's a huge problem.
It's a huge problem. Like
huge problem.
Your pathway here is to go and work for a department. So we're going to get into this world where if we don't change course, you're either going to go and work for a government department and be told what to do, literally told how to behave, what you can and can't say, and what you can do, or you're going to go and work for a big corporate that's going to do the same thing. It's basically the same thing with a different pay slip, and that's going to take some unpicking.
Mm-hmm. Hey, there's two things that I want to ask you before we're finishing up, and I don't know, this seems to be, there's this weird, not weird, there's this version of the right that is rising up at the moment that pushes massively back against Israel. And I don't know if you want to talk about it, but I want to ask you about it. Is you had a trip funded by AJAC back in the day, which is the Israeli lobby, 2019. What happens on those trips?
Yeah, look, I think, honestly, too much is made of it. The trips they're study tours, right? They're meant to be. And what happens is, quite honestly, is you are taken and around to visit sites, important sites, to speak to people, journalists, ex-politicians, and you to see the country, basically. Now, from my point of view, I mean, I sort of, I'm very conscious of, interference, foreign interference, very conscious of it. When I was on the Adelaide City Council, the Chinese used to come over once a year and try and take delegations back, and I refused every single time because I didn't think it was the right way to do it. But in this case, this is an Australian group, and I didn't feel uncomfortable going. I have to say, I didn't feel like the message was pressed. I thought it was actually a very useful trip. I mean, apart from anything else, seeing the Holy Land was a pretty important thing for me to see. They took us to Ramallah in the West Bank to speak to the Palestinians as well, like legitimately spoke. And I always joke that we had 45 minutes of a lecture from the 2IC of the PLA, and it was unfiltered. So it was pretty, I've got to say, it was pretty measured. It was very measured. So I mean, a lot of people do it. I think too much is made of it, honestly. That hasn't left me with any particular bias towards Israel at all. I don't feel any of that, and or any other country for that matter. I don't, if I'd been taken on a trip to, I haven't, but if I'd been taken on a trip to Taiwan or the United States,
because I know Taiwan and
China,
do a lot.
They do a lot of them, and they have. I don't know if they still are. I've never gone on one of those.
Taiwan still do, and China still do. Definitely.
I think probably, honestly, if I had my time again, I might not do it this time. Not because I have any difficulty with what was done. It was very important, very instructive. But I think it should be in the business of taking like as little as you can, and generally, from in politics, like I don't.
Well, I just think your job's here, not Israel, right?
Yeah, and look, and I am unashamedly Australia first. Like that is the fact, and I see a lot of this debate in the United States about the manner in which these things roll out, and I see Tucker Carlson talking about it a lot and getting a lot of heat for that, but. As far as I can
get a lot of heat talking up against them lobbies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the problem in being Australia first. I think that's our job, and that doesn't mean you can't have allies and friends around the world. But I mean, we're not Poland first. We're not going to.
I've got no issues with having allies. What I have issues with, and if you want to push back on this, go ahead. But what I have issues with is people like yourself, which would just go up and go do a tour over there. Seems to be more like a potential propaganda tour for like a pro-Israel.
Well, I think, yeah.
And then I think to myself, well, hang on, like, how about we just get politicians that are touring their electorate or, touring Australia? Sure. Like,
well, you do a lot of that as well.
I understand that. But I just think, like, why are we letting a foreign interest lobby to our politicians I'm not saying you're random, but just getting random politicians taking over. If they want to have allies or any like strategical trade with us, it needs to be through foreign minister to foreign minister, defence minister to defence minister, and organised trips through the government, or not through lobbying. That's my
so I agree,
and I am with that with China, because I always get killed on this. So sorry, I'm with that with China, Taiwan, Qatar, Israel, all of them.
Yeah, of course.
That's what I believe.
And look, so I think. I have a couple of things I'd say about that. First one is this is an Australian group, like so. It's Australian Jewish group, so that's the first thing.
But they got Israel in it.
Yeah, I know, but that is the first thing. This is not the Israeli government. So that's.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
because they're funded by them, aren't they?
Well, I actually don't know, but I think they're funded by a lot of Jewish people in Australia as well. But I want to make this point. I want to make this point. No, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But there's a couple of things. I think most cases people they go on that trip with the best of intentions. I don't think anyone comes away with the intention of serving anything but the Australian Parliament. I mean, we're as heavily regulated as anyone. Section 44, you can't be a foreign citizen. You can't be. By the way, that should be the case for bureaucrats as well. But anyway, just as a general rule, it should be the same for everyone. The second thing is lobbyists generally. I know the Australian Lobby Group are doing their own work, and I haven't done much about the work that you're doing there yet, but
we'll come see you next time.
Yeah, but as a general rule, lobbying I think should be dealt with. I think it should be outlawed generally. So for what it's worth,
foreign lobbying.
All of it. I don't see why.
I actually don't mind that, because one of the things that I've always said is that lobbying needs to be destroyed. Now, I know I'm like potentially cutting my own feet off here.
Well, community groups are different, I think.
Yeah, they are. But like, I just think to myself as well, if I create this big lobbying group, at the end of the day, if the government came out and said, actually, we're going to ban all lobbying, I'll be like, okay.
I think it should be.
I'll be like, I'm actually happy with that. If that means that the Australian Lobby Group has to fold because they're going to ban all of it, okay.
Yeah, well, that would be a win. I don't see why you should get front and centre in front of politicians just because
It's like legalised corruption almost.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I don't like it. It doesn't ring true to me. I don't see why some old lady from down the road who can't do that should get put to the back of the queue because big business can do it. So,
correct.
So that's my view on it. And as for that particular one, I mean, look, I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like it had anything, and I don't feel, honestly, and I really mean this. I feel like they tried to give the best possible view they could of the situation, but I mean, you're going to get more of one side than the other. It's just as simple as that. Yeah. But what we need, this is the bottom line, is what we need in Parliament is politicians that can see through the mist, and I mean that in terms of the hate groups laws. Like, it would be too easy to be lobbied on that, to see that as being a virtue, because we don't like mean people and we don't like mean groups.
Because we know the lobbying groups, or the two major lobbying groups behind those hate crime laws were the EJAC and AJAC.
And yet AJA and their group,
they push back against
it. RBMNI has as well. So I just don't think it's helpful to sort of lumber everyone in the same group. I think we have to speak for Jewish Australians. I totally take the point on foreign interference. I don't have any time for any of that. But not all Jewish groups are for the hate speech laws. AJA, Australian Jewish Association, have been very, very strongly pushing against it.
Yeah, they're more member based, so I think they're run, and they more speak for Jewish Australians than anyone, because they're member driven.
Yeah,
I think the other ones are more very like high powerful driven.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, those ones spoke back, because most Jewish Australians were like, hang on. Like, no, we don't want these laws.
Well, no one should, because they it only takes a swing the opposite direction to be in the crosshairs yourself. Like, I mean, these can be, it's a sword and the shield. They can be weaponized against you, they shouldn't. And that's what people need to be like. Just because you've got the whip hand on any given day doesn't mean you're going to have it in 10 years, 20 years.
And one last. Firstly, thanks for answering for that truthfully, because I know that there's a lot of people out there that if you ask them about that sort of stuff, they get very antsy. But I don't know. I don't think it's an antsy thing. I wanted to just throw it on you and see how you went with it.
You can ask me anything. I don't have any problem with that at all. But I just think we need to be careful not to. I'm pretty cynical, right? I really am. People say to me. Someone said to me the other day, "How far down the rabbit hole are you?" And I said, "I don't know." Like, I'm cynical. Like, that doesn't make you what they say about a conspiracy theory is only the difference between conspiracy theory and reality is about 6 months.
Well, I mean, every conspiracy theory. I mean, Alex Jones has been right about a whole lot of shit, right?
He has. He actually has. But so I'm pretty cynical, and I just think, like, what's true in the United States is not always true here. But people, as long as it's. As long as everyone behaves themselves, I think it's okay to ask the questions. Honestly, I really do.
Well, that's what people like me do. Right? I'll get out there and ask questions. I think as well. And look, I just want to say, because whenever I talk about this stuff, I always get called anti-Semitic, because I'm only highlighting Israel lobbying. I want to, like, me personally, any foreign lobbying. That's Israel, and that's Taiwan do it.
Yeah.
The CCP do it.
Yep.
There's an Islamic group that do it as well. They are massive on foreign lobbying, and I want it to all stop, because all I want is lobbyists that are in there pushing for the Australian people, or if our politicians are getting distracted by foreign lobbying, that means they're not. That means they're not for the Australian people, and it just like it takes time away and resources away from them doing their job. And I'm all for having relations with whatever country we need to, but I don't think it should be through lobbying.
I really have a very dim view on lobbying generally as a general principle. I think, and it doesn't matter whether it's big business or foreign interest or whatever it is, because, I think there are good, interests that are, the Australian Christian lobby do it. They're not making a profit, so okay. So I think there are groups that are doing a good job, but as a general rule, I think if we removed them all, we'd be better for it. We're about
to hit 20,000 members.
Yeah,
on ours.
Yeah,
and we had our lobbyists in there last Parliament, and it was awesome. But it sucks, mate, because I've always said to I hate lobbying. But one of the things that I've worked out is that, the only way that we can get our issues talked about in Parliament House is if we start a lobbying group.
Yeah,
and it's like. I need to create the one thing that I despise the most to be able to get in there to talk to politicians about some of the issues that we want to represent our clients on, and that's 20,000 Australians, which, mate, hopefully in a couple of years that'll be 1 million Australians. And it'll be one of the most powerful things to walk through Parliament House. But, I mean, we can all dream, right? Now, look, one last thing I want to talk to you about.
Yep.
And let's see how you answer it. Mate, have you had any phone calls from One Nation? Trying to pull you across?
I mean, I speak to Corey, but it's not about...
That's a friendship.
Yeah, it's a friendship. Which has been
have any...
I joked, actually.
Pauline,
I haven't... I mean, I talk to all of them all the time about a whole range of things, but there has never been a concerted push to get me to join One Nation. I spoke to Pauline. She was sitting next to me in a hearing, Senate estimates hearing a few weeks ago. And she sort of made some throwaway comment about, how good's One Nation? Why don't it was in jest. And I said to her, oh, well, there we go. I've just blown my cover now. Now I can never say I haven't spoken to you about it. Totally in jest. And so, no, that's no, look, I don't, I mean, look, you never say never in politics because, you just shouldn't. But I don't, there's no grand conspiracy to jump ship at this stage. Yeah, I always say that, just for sport. No, so no. The answer is no. There's no plan. It's not. There's been sort of. I've seen people commenting that I predict it'll definitely be after that'll be news to me if that happens. So no, I'm much to the chagrin of some of my colleagues. Probably I shouldn't say that either. I just did, but anyway, whatever.
Well, mate, if you actually move that, if you move the Albo poster and see that nail?
Yep.
Yeah, that's my famous rule where I nailed that nail right into there, and then I threw the hammer down, and I said, "That's the final nail in the Liberal coffin."
Is that it? I wonder what that was.
Right after that,
I thought you were taping this conversation or something. Mate, I thought that was a wire.
I'll show you the reel after it, and it's where I just blast the Liberal Party and say they're done after voting for the voting.
Wonder if I can get it out.
It's in there forever, mate. But mate, Alex Antic, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I threw some curveball questions at you late there, but thank you for being honest, and thanks for coming around. And mate, good luck. And I always say, I get this question a lot. I say, because a lot of people know that I do speak to certain politicians here and there, and they say, there are only good ones in there.
Yeah.
And I say, there's Alex Antic. So
it's nice of you to say that.
Yeah,
thanks. Because I'm sitting right here.
But that's truth and honesty. That's
thanks, well, we try. Yeah.
There's also a massive Liberal base that is just hardcore Antic followers, and these people, some of these people would follow you to war, mate. I'm fucking serious. I talk to them about you, and they're like, wherever Alex goes, we go. Mate, start the revolution. Well, we need a revolution.
Oh, yeah. We never thought I'd be a Che Guevara, but anyway, revolutionary. But no, look, it's very nice of you to say. Look, the only thing I honestly, I know this is like the most hackneyed thing in the world is having someone in politics. I try not to call myself a politician because it's just, I heard, it's just awful. But anyway, let's call it that for the minute. Like, if you can be as honest and true to your conscience as you can, I think that whatever else happens, it may be that you're not riding the roller coaster of ministries, and but I mean, who cares? Like, I shouldn't say that, but I think you can do more outside that tent sometimes than you can in. So I'm just going to continue to watch carefully, be cynical, and continue to vote with my conscience. And wherever that takes me, it takes me, and I just don't care. So
good stuff. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, Alex Antic, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Sam. Good on you.
Thanks for tuning in to Two Worlds Collide podcast. If you want to support what I'm doing, you can grab some merch or jump on my Patreon program. Both links are in the description. Until next week, take care, guys.